thinkers that are going to be important. Let's move then to some of the closer antecedents to Whitehead's own thought. Okay, and this is the modern philosophical tradition. So some of you will be familiar with Gottfried Leibniz. Okay, he is the famous Jewish philosopher and mathematician who insists that the base level of reality, they're pure processes. They're bundles of activity, what he calls monads, units, right? Each of them have a kind of internal drive. They're not static, but they're developing, right? And the world, in a deep sense, is made out of aggregations of these processual monads, right? The world, the fundamental world of things, even yourself. Okay, so this category of monad. Again, I'm not concerned with you mastering all this. We're trying to see the intuitions that are coming out in the philosophical tradition. Okay, so priority again is given to process here rather than substantial objects. The verb nature of reality rather than the noun nature of reality. So Whitehead is greatly influenced by monads, the monadology of Leibniz. That's the term of his famous book. And yet I have to mention here, Gilles Deleuze, the 20th century philosopher, is correct to say that Whitehead doesn't affirm a monad, he affirms a nomad, right? And the difference is that these nomads, in a way deeper than Leibniz, are themselves on the move, right? It's a nomadic nature of reality. I kind of like that distinction. Okay, George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel is often pointed to as one of the most fundamental resources in modern thought for process thinking. Okay, and among the many things he's known for is this notion of historical and developmental reality, right? That the world is through and through evolutionary, and that this change in evolution comes through a kind of dialectical process, okay? Where opposing notions are synthesized, they're reconciled, and they're back to opposition. They're synthesized, they're reconciled, they're back to opposition. And this is how he views the change, the evolution of time, right? And it's often portrayed in this triangular sort of diagram where thesis and antithesis merge in a synthesis, break again into thesis, antithesis, and merge back into the synthesis. Okay, Whitehead certainly influenced Hegel, as some of you have said. If Whitehead's in the water at Claremont School of Theology, Hegel was in the philosophical water in Whitehead's philosophical emergence. He admits to reading one page of Hegel and putting it down. Some have probably also treated Whitehead that way. But this element of process of evolutionary dynamism is certainly essential for Whitehead's thought. Okay, there's also Charles Sanders Peirce, which should be mentioned as an important forerunner and contemporary even with Whitehead, where evolutionary development is a fundamental theme. Okay, it's not just a theme of the biological realm, right? Because we don't fall into the world, but it's a theme of the whole physical cosmos itself. We'll see later that evolution is this almost a grand meta-narrative of the cosmic story, right? Some wouldn't use that language, but there's a sense in which the sciences have revealed this. So he said essentially that the key to understanding anything, okay, it might be nature, value, truth, things that are often thought unchanging, requires fundamental process, this intuition of process. And a uniqueness certainly of Peirce and of many others, but he speaks about evolutionary love. Okay, according to Peirce, the engine of evolution is not strife, it's not pure competition, pure wrestle for survival, but it has to do more with nurturing love. Okay, an entity is prepared to sacrifice itself in its own perfection for the sake of the well-being of its neighbor. Right, sort of a nice metaphor for thinking of the evolutionary process. We'll see that Whitehead won't exactly phrase it this way, but he'll find that love itself, whether known or not by someone, is woven in to the process of the universe. Okay, God has a very fundamental function in that way. William James must be mentioned. Okay, Whitehead referred to James as an adorable genius. James actually taught at Harvard prior to Whitehead when he moved to Harvard. So James, again, it repudiated fixity, stagnation, He was a critique of materialist ideas, right? That would want to reduce our understanding of nature to vacuous bits that are bumping around, but don't change internally. Okay, rather, we're dealing with our own experience, a blooming, a buzzing confusion. And this is the way that he describes this. And certainly as a psychologist, the human psyche itself is caught up in this processual flow. Okay, it was James who coined the notion that consciousness is a stream. It's flowing, right? We said, Heraclitus, that you can't step in the same river twice. James says you cannot even experience the same moment twice. Okay? Consciousness does not appear chopped up in bits. A river or a stream are the more accurate metaphors, right? The stream of thought, consciousness, or of subjective life. Okay, notice that Whitehead, in a sense, sounds like James here. He says the notion of an actual entity, or a substance, if you want, as a subject of change, an unchanging subject of change, is completely abandoned. He's leaving that notion behind. Rather, the ancient doctrine that no one crosses the same river twice is extended. It's imaginatively extended. No thinker thinks twice, and to put the matter more generally, no subject, that is to say you, experiences twice. Okay, we must also mention Henri Bergson, the famous French philosopher. Okay, Bergson is often listed next to Whitehead as being one of the foremost philosophical minds at the base of modern process thinking. Okay, and we'll just mention briefly that temporality for Bergson, in a brilliant way, forms the matrix for understanding nature, the emergence of life, mind, and consciousness. Okay, temporality is just a fancy way of speaking about time, the movement of time, things passing, right? In our biology, in our consciousness, in our very emergence on the planet. Okay, so this means that innovation, change, creativity, they're properly conceived as the essence of nature in organic life. They're not fringe. They're not accidents, to use the famous philosophical terms. They're a part of the essence of what it is to be in the world. So bears witness, evolution, according to Bergson, to a vitality. It's pervasive all throughout nature. And the language he uses is that we must oppose the immobility, right? The immobile. If you're immobile, you can't move. He says that is not what human experience bears witness to. And as long as philosophy holds on to that picture, it's doing itself a disservice, right? Immobility is a picture in the photographic sense of the word, taken of reality, when rather what is truly the case, it seems, is that we're dealing with a movie in some sense, not a picture vision of reality, but a moving vision of reality. Okay, John Dewey should also be mentioned. Dewey, again, is an influence on Whitehead. Next to James Bergson, he sees process and self-creation being fundamental. Okay, and he extends this to the political, to the democratic realm, the development of human beings and education. And Whitehead, in some sense, did this as well. Okay, time and individuality are fundamentally related. And this means that what we're dealing with is potentialities. We're dealing with the fact of development, and development means nothing but moving into different modes of potential, different higher potentialities, if you want. And notice his statement, okay, the ground of democratic ideas and practices is found in the potentialities of individuals, and the capacity for positive developments if properly developed. Free individuality, which is the source of art, is also the final source of creative development in time. And if human beings have potentialities, how much more does the universe itself? The things at the very base of reality. We'll get to later on to Whitehead having a really amazing vision of the place of possibility in the universe. Okay, and so we come to Whitehead. We should ask, what's the purpose of this far too selective survey? Well, we could have included a lot of different thinkers. It's far too male-centric, as you no doubt noticed. This is the besetting sin of philosophy. And it's wonderful to see, certainly in the modern development of the school of thought, feminist thinkers, womanist thinkers, a variety of female voices taking process thought and developing it in ways that are just beautiful. So the point of this survey, though, is to simply show a few key examples. I think the bold points of some of the prevalence of philosophical intuitions throughout the Western and Eastern tradition. These are intuitions of process, okay? They've always been there and scattered in different ways, and they have to form, and certainly in Whitehead knows this, antecedents to his own thought. Okay, again, he doesn't emerge from nowhere. Process thought's going to leave him behind in some sense. It must. The process philosophy has to remain in process, right? But Whitehead is this sort of igniting event that allows for the emergence of process thought in a very significant way, okay, in the modern world. Okay, so two broad intuitions we've come to then is that the dynamism of this world shows that things can't do or be without processes. Right? It's this underlying notion, this assumption that things change in some deep sense, even a rock after millions of years. Therefore, they must be conceived in terms of process or patterns of process. Okay, process is more fundamental than things. Things emerge and pass away, then process in some sense should have priority over things. Becoming has priority over being. Okay, but we have to say too, we're speaking very broadly. Remember, we're starting more broadly in our investigations together. Okay, so we've not yet said what a process consists in. Haven't said what it's like or what it is that's in process or what essential features are to be included in this notion of process. Okay, these have been variously discussed certainly, but we're going to get to that as we continue on. Okay, and as we turn